Katrina Judge, the founder of Young Climate Warriors, will now join us for a little by little becomes a lot, to look at how we can work together as a virtual team to respond to climate change. Young Climate Warriors provide fun weekly challenge that help children tackle climate change.
Good afternoon. I'm Katrina Judge from Young Climate Warriors. Young Climate Warriors are really excited to be here today at this fabulous Youth Climate Summit. We've really enjoyed the sessions yesterday and this morning, and thank you to Transform Our World for inviting us. We hope you've had a great morning and your lunch break has provided you with lots of energy for the afternoon ahead. Just before we begin, a few words about who Young Climate Warriors are. Young Climate Warriors provide fun weekly challenges that help children tackle climate change as part of a virtual team of over 1,000 Young Climate Warriors. Over 70 teachers have signed up to encourage their pupils, and they receive a free weekly schools pack, which includes simple resources. Now that's enough of an introduction. Shall we get going? Let me just share my screen. Are you with me? Little by little, a little becomes a lot. Are you ready? It's time to don your thinking caps. Have you got one? Can you pop it on? Does anybody know who this is? That's right, he's a chameleon. He's a type of lizard. Well, I have to confess, I don't know if he's male or female, but we'll call him he for this discussion. You might have heard of chameleons before. They're well known for being able to completely change their colour. Much of nature is truly incredible, and here it is in action. You're going to have to be patient. His colour changes little by little. Can you see how dark green he is now? Watch carefully. What did you think? Isn't he beautiful? Did you see how the bright orangey colour crept up his legs and tail and belly, and how finally his body became slightly paler green or yellow colour? Let's just spend a moment looking a little bit closer at chameleons. Now, did you notice his eyes? His eyes can rotate separately. That means one can turn one way and one the other way. So he can see two different objects at the same time. I think your teachers would find that quite handy. We didn't really see the tongue in this video clip, but chameleons have really long tongues, sometimes twice the length of their body. They flick their tongue in and out to catch their prey. And there are 160 different types of chameleons. Nearly half of them are native to Madagascar. I expect some of you will have heard of Madagascar because of the films. It is an island just on the east of Africa. You can see it there on the map. Almost 90% of the reptiles, plant life and mammals that live in Madagascar don't exist anywhere else on Earth. Now, chameleons and the island of Madagascar, like the rest of our planet, are suffering because of climate change. And I know you've talked about climate change quite a lot already today, but here's a quick, super speedy recap of a couple of its impacts. So our climate is changing, the planet is getting hotter, the weather more extreme and unpredictable, all because we're burning too many fossil fuels and emitting too much carbon into our atmosphere. We're beginning to see more rainfall and storms, more droughts, forest fires, changing seasons, shrinking sea ice and rising sea levels. Let's look at a couple of photos to remind us of those impacts and why we need to do something about it. So there are more forest fires in Australia. This is a photo from earlier in the year. There's flooding in Bangladesh in July of this year as the rickshaw drivers struggle with the extreme levels of rainfall. And climate change is also impacting a lot of life in the UK. Here were some photos from York. And in South Africa in 2018, there were severe shortages of water. This meant that people had to queue at standpipes at the end of their streets. They couldn't just switch on the tap like we're also used to being able to do. Can you imagine having to worry about every drop of water you use? So those are pretty dramatic photos, and climate change is affecting all our lives around the world, but there are lots of things we can do to make the situation a bit better. Maybe you're thinking, like one of these children, well, climate change, I've heard of that, but I don't know what I can do about it though. Or climate change, doesn't our government sort that out? I didn't know I could do anything. Or maybe I've heard of Greta Thunberg, but what can I do? I'm actually only 9 years old. So today we're thinking about how a little by little, a little becomes a lot. And we're going to discuss how you can choose to help combat climate change by undertaking little actions. More of that in a bit. Now, you're going to need those thinking caps again. Pop it on. What do you think is the link between chameleons and climate change? Well, yes, chameleons, like many animals, are suffering because of climate change. But today we'd like you to think about the fact that they can remarkably and dramatically change. That's what we need to do to help combat climate change. So chameleons were first thought to change their colour as a way to camouflage themselves to their new surroundings, but more recent studies have shown they use their skin colour to help control their body temperature, and they can also change colour as a way to communicate or expressing their feelings. In all these cases, chameleons are changing colour in response to a new situation, to adapt to a new environment in which they find themselves, or reacting to information that others are telling them, using their colour change as a way to communicate. So we can learn from the chameleon. We need to change the way we do things now in response to climate change. We need to adapt to our new environment. We can't just keep on doing things the way we did before, and we need to react with new knowledge and understanding and tell others about it. So are you ready? It's your turn again. Take a look at these video clips created with the help of my children and see if you can work out the links between each of the clips. That was a fairly complicated train track. What about this one? Did you enjoy watching that puzzle grow? I'm sure you recognise it as Roald Dahl's book about Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Did you see the Oompa Loompas and the little pink boat? And Charlie's huge smile as he held up his golden ticket. And now for the final video clip. This is Alfie, one of my sons, having fun with his Lego. I hope you enjoyed those. My children enjoyed making them. But what were they all about? What's the link between them? Yes, they are things you can do on a rainy afternoon or things you can do at home in lockdown. But no, that's not the link we're thinking of. Firstly, we saw a train track, and the trains couldn't go anywhere without the many sections of track slotting together. All the pieces are fundamental to achieving a complete track. And then we saw the jigsaw puzzle made up of 250 pieces, and each one has to be put in its correct place very patiently to create the final Charlie and the Chocolate Factory scene. And then thirdly, the fun of Lego is in taking all the small little tiny pieces and shapes and sizes and attaching them to each other to make a final model. In each of these cases, there's huge value in the little pieces. By themselves, a rounder piece of Lego or the odd piece of a puzzle might seem a bit useless. But if they're all working towards the same end, they can be really meaningful. They can result in a remarkable and dramatic end result, a railway, a picture, or a Lego model. We can see that little by little, a little can become a lot. Little by little, a little becomes a lot is a Tanzanian proverb. Tanzania is the 13th largest country in Africa, situated on its eastern coast, in fact, not far from Madagascar. And we think it's a great proverb because it helps to encourage and explain the idea that lots of little actions can make a big impact. By adding each little piece of train track, we can create the full completed track. By adding little puzzle pieces, we create the picture. And by adding the Lego pieces, we can create amazing models. So Young Climate Warriors thinks if we all do the same little things at the same time, we can make a really big change. It's like teamwork. If we all act together, we can make a big difference. And we need to be like that chameleon. We need to adapt to our current situation. So hang on, let's just have a recap. What have we looked at so far? We've looked at chameleons, seen how they change and adapt to their situation. We've looked briefly at climate change and the impact on our planet. And we just looked at how little pieces can add up to create big results. So what do we need to do next? What can children really do to help? Well, the answer is lots. Let's look at one of today's themes at this Youth Climate Summit, travel. There are so many ways to travel: walking, running, cycling, traveling by pushchair, driving, scooting, catching the bus or the train, or flying by aeroplane. Oops, sorry. But you may be wondering, how can children help? You might be thinking, oh, I'm too young to drive a car, or my parent or carer decides if and when we go on holiday and how we get there. Adults are involved in making lots of decisions to do with travel. So how do you think as children you can influence how you get to and from places and how much choice you have and how you can impact the choice as an environment? Let's see if we can work out this riddle. Cats have 4, beetles have 6, spiders have 8. How many do you have? I'm sure you've worked it out. You have 2, and it's referring to legs, and they are very useful. Let's have a brief look at a BBC Newsrun report which shows other children around the world. See how they use their legs instead of other modes of transport. This picture shows children in Bampo in China. Their school is located halfway up a mountain, so to get to school they have to walk carefully along these narrow cliff paths. We hope they're not afraid of heights. And in the foothills of Mount Elgon in Kenya, Africa, the children walk barefoot to school. In fact, shoes aren't even a compulsory uniform item in primary schools. The roads are made of earth and rocks, and during the rainy season, they turn very muddy and make getting to school really tricky. Have a look at this short video clip and try and imagine that you are one of those children running to get to school.
In the foothills of Mount Elgon in Kenya, these kids are heading to school, but there's no bus and few cars, so kids walk or run, and many of them are barefoot. It's not an easy journey, but these 2 girls run 3 miles without any shoes to get to school, and then another 3 miles back home again.
And then if we just look at one more here. So watch how these children have to get to school. It's incredible.
These children live in a small village in China. They have to climb ladders attached to the side of a mountain to get home. They can spend months away from home because their schools are so far away. And it's not just the villagers who use the ladders, the dogs are pretty good at it too.
I hope you enjoyed those clips. Did you manage to imagine yourself as one of those children? What does your walk to school look like in comparison? Do you have to walk along narrow ledges on the mountainsides or climb up super long ladders? Do you normally walk barefoot? I expect all of our walks to school wouldn't be nearly as complicated nor as long as those. But now, why is it important that we try and walk, scoot, bike or run more often and use our cars less? Well, most cars run on petrol or diesel, which I'm sure you know are fossil fuels. And when the petrol is burnt in the car engines, it makes the car move, but it also produces the exhaust. And the exhaust fumes include, amongst other things, carbon dioxide and particulates, both of which are leading to climate change and are very harmful to our planet. So, would you be up for the challenge of walking to school more? If you chose to walk to school instead of jumping in the car, it might require a change to your routine. You'd need to ask your parent or carer first, but if they agreed, then just like a chameleon, you might need to make some changes. You might need to get out of bed earlier. You might need to find your umbrella. And possibly you need to be more organized and pack your school bag the night before. But would you be up for it? And we do know that sometimes you have to drive to a destination. Walking or public transport might take too long or be impractical. But did you know that even as children, even when you drive somewhere, you could influence the impact of your car journey on the environment? Have you thought about parking earlier and walking the last mile? Do you know how to top up your tire pressure? Ask your parent or carer to show you how it works and top up your tires if they're too long. Underinflated tires can use more fuel, and they're worse for climate change. Now, next time you're waiting in the car, maybe your brother or sister to finish football club or brownies, can you make sure your engine is switched off? That way, you're not burning petrol when you don't need to. And finally, lift sharing. We're not able to do lift shares at the moment in lockdown, but when we're back to normal life, which friends could you offer a lift to? Sharing lifts cuts journeys and reduces the impact on our planet. So these are all ways that children can, little by little, like pieces in a jigsaw, make a difference to climate change. Let's have a think about how it all adds up. So 1,000 children have already signed up to be Young Climate Warriors. I wonder how many people there are in your classroom today. If you have 30 children in your class, you'd need to imagine 33 classrooms the same size as yours. And all those children have chosen to become Young Climate Warriors. So if all those Young Climate Warriors walked 4 miles in a week that they would otherwise have driven, then as a team, we could have reduced our carbon emissions by almost half a ton in just 1 week. That would be amazing. And it is your choice. You have options. You can take little actions that can make a big difference. As we've seen, little by little, a little can become a lot. Can you see how you can take those little actions, and as part of a team, you can make a big difference? Now, another of today's Youth Climate Summit themes is waste, food waste. And there are many things we do waste in life, wasting paper, plastic, clothing, but I thought we'd look today at food waste. Now look closely at the screen and see if you can remember these 4 vegetables. Have you got them? It's time for those thinking caps. Don't forget the vegetables. We're going to have a little quiz. Which statement refers to which vegetable? So firstly, skins are delicious in mash. Well, that's quite easy. This is referring to the potatoes. Next time you help to make mashed potatoes, can you ask to keep the skins on? Secondly, pesto can be made from these leaves. Can you think which vegetable we're referring to? Yes, pesto is normally made from basil leaves, but it can also be made from carrot tops. Now, we don't always see carrot tops when you buy carrots from the supermarket, but if you grow your own or buy them from a market, you'll have seen the leaves. You don't need to throw them away. Maybe you could turn them into pesto for your pasta. Thirdly, just as tasty as spinach. Well, assuming you like spinach, that is. Have you ever eaten beetroot leaves? If you see beetroot with their leaves on, maybe you could try them. And finally, crunchy and delicious stems. So broccoli stems are so often thrown away. Alfie, my son, the one who made the Lego model, thinks they're the best part of the broccoli. He prefers them to the broccoli trees. Why not give them a try? So, would you be up for a food waste challenge? Could you be sous chef of the week? Could you help your family reduce your food waste and help combat climate change at the same time? But like a chameleon, you'd need to make some changes to adapt to the new way of doing things. When you're heading for a piece of toast, could you opt for the bread crust so it doesn't get left to go moldy? Or as a sous chef, helping your parent or carer prepare their meals, could you use a bit more? Could you eat the stems and the stalks? Or what about, could you choose the bruised apple or banana so that it isn't left to go off and then end up as food waste? Would you be up for those sorts of challenges? Another way of looking at it, if you're wanting to reduce your food waste and feel like a more mathematical week, maybe you could help work out exactly how much dry pasta or rice you need to make the right amount for your family meal. It's notoriously difficult to guess how much you need, especially as it expands when cooked. Can you weigh out the rice or pasta following the instructions on the packet? Work out after one meal, was that the right quantity? Then find a bowl or a mug in the cupboard which is just the right size. So next week it's easier to get it right and not cook the extra food you didn't need and save it from being wasted. But hang on, you might be wondering why it matters. What's the problem with food waste anyway? Well, as Young Climate Warriors, we like to think about children all around the world, as well as in the UK. Globally, 800 million children are undernourished, and many, many children are going hungry. And yet a third of all the food produced globally goes to waste. Think of all that carbon-intense energy that is used to grow, produce, package, and transport that food. If it's thrown away, not eaten, then it's all being wasted. But there's more to it than that. Food, if it ends up in landfill sites with our general rubbish, produces a gas called methane. And methane contains carbon. And it's actually even worse for climate change than carbon dioxide. Currently, 40% of UK food waste ends up in landfill sites. So it's really important that we do what we can to reduce our food waste. Every little action counts. So let's go back to our Young Climate Warriors. If 1,000 children all help their families to eat their broccoli stalks, toast the crusts, mash their potatoes with a peel on, work out the right amount of pasta and rice, eat the bruised apples and bananas, wouldn't that be amazing? Little by little, a little becomes a lot. If each individual, like the chameleon, is prepared to change and adapt to their new situation, they can respond to climate change. If each person undertakes just small actions and makes little changes, then we'll really be able to help combat climate change. Remember those train tracks, jigsaw puzzle, and the Lego model? All those pieces matter. If you'd be excited to join our team of Young Climate Warriors, you need to ask your parent, carer, or teacher to help sign you up. It's free and simple to do. You can go to our website, youngclimatewarriors.org, and click subscribe. Then you complete the fun challenge sent to you by email each week or on the website, and you'll be helping to combat climate change. And thirdly, you can let your voice be heard by hitting the red button on the website or the email when you've completed the challenge. So, what do you think this picture is about? It's a clue to this week's challenge. You'll have to go to our website and find out what the challenge is, should you choose to accept it. We hope you enjoyed the session. It was great to have you with us. Enjoy the rest of the Youth Climate Summit. Thank you for listening. See you soon. And don't forget, all the little actions are so important. We can and we will combat climate change. Little by little, a little becomes a lot.